Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how you can use curves in Lightroom to improve your images by boosting tones and shifting colours. So I'm just going to escape out of my finished image there, and first of all I'm going to import my file into Lightroom. So here I am in Lightroom's library module, and I'm going to click the import button down at the bottom left, and then I need to navigate to my file using the source panel here on the right. So I'm going to go for this one here, and I just want to check my start image here and then click import. And once that's imported, I can go to the develop module, and this is where I can begin making my changes. First of all, I'm going to make a couple of quick changes to improve the tones by teasing out some of the detail in the highlights and the shadows. I can do that using the basic panel, which is the one at the top right over here. In fact, I'm just going to minimize some of the other panels here just to maximize my image size. Then I'm going to go to the highlights over here. We'll bring those back to a negative value. I'm going to set it to about -75. You see how that just helps to claw back some detail in those highlights in the sky there. I'm going to do the opposite with the shadows and bring that up. We're going to go to about +45, +46, somewhere around about there. And then I'm going to go to the whites, and I'm going to knock that back as well to about -80, -81. I'm also going to up the mid-tone contrast by increasing clarity. I'm going to bring that to about +50, +52, something like that. And I'm going to go to the vibrance, and this will increase the saturation of the less saturated colours in the image. So I'm going to bring that up to about +50, and I'm happy with that. So now I've managed to reveal some detail in the shadows and the highlights, but as a consequence the image is looking a bit flat and dull. So I'm going to use curves to add a bit of extra punch. So I'm going to go to the tone curve, which is below the basic panel here, and I want to make sure I'm working on the point curve rather than this version here, which gives me these sliders here. So I need to click this icon here to make sure I'm on the point curve. I also need to make sure I'm working on RGB. Now I'm going to click on this diagonal line here to set an anchor point, and then I can drag that point upwards to lighten the image or downwards to darken the image. So I'm going to set this point around about there, and then I can click down here to set a second point, and I'm going to drag that down. And notice how that starts to increase the contrast, and the further I drag, the more contrast we get. And this is a classic S-shaped curve. So I'm going to bring it up to about there because I don't want to darken the shadows too much. What we're doing effectively is darkening the shadows and brightening the highlights. The tonal range starts off over here with the darkest tones, and as we move across the box from left to right, we move towards the lightest tones. And the y-axis, which is this vertical axis here, allows me to change those tones. If I drag up, it will lighten. If I drag down, it will darken. So anywhere above the initial diagonal line will result in lighter tones, and anywhere below the initial diagonal line will result in darker tones. And to illustrate this, I can click on this little tool here, and then as I hover over different tones in the image, you can see exactly where they sit along my tonal range. Because I'm in the lighter tones up here in the sky, you can see that little point hovering towards the right side of the graph. But if I move down towards the rocks, you can see that point now moves to the left side of the box. And I can also click and drag if I want to change these tones. So I can click and drag over the rocks here. If I drag up, it will lighten the rocks. If I drag down, it will darken those darkest tones. So I'm going to leave that about there. And if I want, I can just add another point here in the middle of the curve line just to control the brightness of the midtone. So I think I'm just going to up that slightly to brighten the image overall like that. Now I can also use curves to shift colours, and I can do that by selecting different colour channels in the channel box here. So for example, I can choose the blue channel. Now if I drag up on the blue line, it will introduce blue. If I drag down, it will add yellow. But I can also drag this bottom left and top right point to shift the very darkest tones and the very brightest. So you can see, rather than the tonal range going to pure black, I'm now making it go to a slight blue cast in the very darkest tones. I can shift the top right point downwards, and now rather than the tones going to pure white, they're going to go to a slightly yellow tone. So you can see I've given my image a bit of a retro feel with this colour shift. I think it's a bit too strong, so I'm going to drag the blues to about there and the yellows to about there. So that's how you can make subtle color shifts by dragging the bottom left and top right points of your curve line, and you can do the same thing with other channels. So I'm going to go to the red channel now, and this time I'm going to add some cyan to the midtone. So I'm going to click a couple of points down here to pin the curve line there, and I'm going to click another couple of points up here to pin the top half, and then I'm going to click a point here in the middle, and I'm just going to drag it down, and this will add a touch of cyan, but I'm only adding the cyan to the midtones. If I dragged up it would add red incidentally, but I'm going to drag down to add a touch of cyan, and I'm happy with that. So you can see how curves gives us really precise control over these colors. Now let's go to the green curve line. If I drag that line up, that will obviously add green. If I drag down, it will add magenta. So I'm going to make a really subtle inverted S shape by dragging the bottom part of the curve line up slightly and the top right part down slightly. We don't want anything too strong. I think that's just about right there. And I'm pretty happy with those tones now. I'm just going to go back to my RGB channel and up these 2 points just to lighten the image slightly overall. And this is the great thing about working in Lightroom. Every change that you make is completely editable, so you can retweak it whenever you like. And I'm happy with that. So that's how you can use the tone curve to boost colors, to change brightness, and also to introduce some creative color shifts to transform the mood of your images. I'm going to finish off by using the graduated filter just to darken down the top right corner here of the image, just to balance out my composition. I think we'll set exposure to about -60 just to darken down that top right corner, and that's it. That's my finished image.